Welcome to episode 96 of the LOTD Pod, the Left of the Dial podcast. I'm Blake, along with my friend Richard. How are you doing this week, Richard?
Hey, perfectly adequate.
It's all anybody can hope for, isn't it?
That's right. Just hang in there, everybody on the internet.
Just stay afloat. I think we're all just trying to stay afloat, right?
Stay afloat. Sleep as much as possible. When you wake up, maybe things will be better.
Yeah, just keep on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on.
We're doing a little bit of celebrating this week. We're celebrating. We're doing another birthday bash, if you will, this week.
Oh yeah,
and it's one of one of my favorite all-time artists, for sure, that we're discussing this week, and that's Jeff Tweedy, who turns 54 Wednesday.
Right. Yeah. Well done.
And if you know Jeff Tweedy, you probably know him from Wilco, but also he was also in a band, Uncle Tupelo, that was huge. Like one of my favorite. I will say my favorite band of the '90s for sure, and but certainly just a huge band in my life. And Jeff Tweedy is a huge artist in my life. So I'm homework super easy this week for me for sure. Not sure about yourself.
Yeah, Tweedy is so in my household we call him Tweedums. Tweedums is on all the time over here. And yeah, love the guy. We've seen Wilco a bunch of times and saw Golden Smog once, but I think Tweedy's really come into his own as a solo guy. So he's on. I have his all of his solo records, and they're kind of the only Tweedy related project that I really seek out on vinyl. And as you know from listening to the show, that's the endorsement right there.
So wait, vinyl only applies to the solo stuff?
Yeah. I don't have any Wilco on vinyl. There are a couple albums that I think I maybe like enough, but the solo Tweedy stuff that's been coming out lately, I think, is his best work.
So no Uncle Tupelo on vinyl?
No, never really been like that. I mean, they're okay, but I never really put them on.
Huh. Oh God. Well, I mean, yeah, I knew that, I knew going in. So this is one of those things too, where just like a lot of times with this show, the things that are closest to me is also sometimes the thing that ends up not being talked about on the show, because I know, going back to Rudy, and then those times where there's a big differential in like my base of knowledge and whoever else I'm talking with, like sometimes that's just kind of where like those things just don't get brought up. It's usually like the strong concentric circles that make up the show topics.
The Venn diagram.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, but then things come along to kind of make it, like a birthday coming up, then it kind of like, well, okay, if there's a time to do it, now it's the time to do it. And yeah, so I don't know. It's very easy for me to do this show, and not so even, but yeah, I do hope for the day though that Uncle Tupelo, like that I can talk to anybody about Uncle Tupelo, because everybody has come around to Uncle Tupelo, but maybe that'll never happen.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely. I've given them. What's the album that I've tried? March 16th through 20th, 1992.
which is definitely like the least of them for me. Not that it's a bad, they didn't make a bad album or anything, but March is an album where they did a lot of traditional songs instead of their originals. So I don't like it as much, basically for that reason. Um, I think you gotta at least give Anodyne a good listen, and then from there, Still Feel Gone. And
Yeah, yeah.
if it doesn't click with those two albums, maybe it's not going to click. But I think those are two albums that everybody's gotta, anybody that likes Jeff Tweedy at all, I think has to, or if you like Jay Farrar at all, or if you like both of them, um, you got to give those two albums a listen. Is what I would say.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I own both of them in my main uh CD collection. But just, there was always like a Wilco album coming out, and then lately, so much good solo stuff from Tweedums that I just never really ended up going back. So yeah, but I'll give it a try, and I've really enjoyed you steering me in the right direction with like Jayhawks and things. So much appreciated.
Yeah, and so since you brought up Jayhawks, so like my personal experience, Jayhawks kind of laid the groundwork, I would say, for them, because because of the Jayhawks, um, I started getting more interested in, like Jayhawks led me to Graham Parsons and the Flying Burrito Brothers, and so that and from Graham Parsons, I started, listening to like Merle Haggard and Buck Owens, and whatever else, like the more traditional great songwriters of country music. Um, and like to be, uh, you know, a young person, you maybe don't get into that 100%. Like it's great and it's some of my favorite stuff, but I think at that early age, I was still kind of needing a link to it, and I think Uncle Tupelo kind of provided that link that really kind of bolstered everything, brought everything together. And I would say it's hearing Jeff, hearing Jeff's voice w- was really like it was kind of the missing piece to the puzzle in a lot of ways for me. The thing that really locked me into a love of country music. Um, so that was the foundation, and then hearing Jeff, uh, like his voice was so it was so unusual, but so relatable, and it, it just instantly. Uh, um, it was just like one of those instant things, the first time I heard him sing, it was just I just liked his voice so much, and he also had this sound of, like, well, that's somebody that's my age, like it was that sort of thing too. It's just like I
Yeah.
just I felt immediately like, okay, this is somebody just like me that also enjoys this music, and this is bringing it all together. So it's part punk, it's part country, and the worlds are just locked in together here.
Yeah, I think that's a great summary of that band, and you know the experience that Jeff Tweedy had in that band. From he's also a great writer too. So you probably read "Let's Go So We Can Go Back Again" or "Get Back Again."
Hmm.
Yeah, so then that's a great rock and roll book by Jeff Tweedy. And yeah, talking about how those two aspects of music are really interrelated. It being in what starts out as like a DIY band with like a real punk ethos, but playing kind of twangy, rootsy music. Thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, and it's I think this was a discussion I had on the show at one time with Rudy. I mean, there was this thing called known as cowpunk. You know, like your Jason and the Scorchers, that sort of thing. Um, I think Uncle Tupelo was different than cowpunk. It was kind of its own. It really was a new genre forming when they were. And and what that genre is known as, it's debatable. I guess it's called Americana or alt country or whatever. I don't know. I don't worry about that, what it's called. But the Jayhawks and Uncle Tupelo were going on simultaneously. Um, but yeah, that to me is where that whole thing started. Cowpunk is something that predates it, but I think it's a bit different. And yeah, Uncle Tupelo was for anybody not familiar with Uncle Tupelo, that maybe this is their introduction to that they like Wilco, or and are listening to this and not super familiar with Uncle Tupelo. They were a band, a Midwestern band in the St. Louis area, in Belleville, Illinois, right across the river from St. Louis. And St. Louis, I don't think has ever been a great music scene. Of course, Chuck Berry's from
Of
St.
course,
Louis.
Chuck Berry, yeah.
But he didn't become famous in St. Louis. He went to Chicago and recorded, in Chicago. Uh, so I mean, St. Louis has never been a place where you really make it as a band, but I guess they got somewhere, but it's never been a hot spot for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of the people that were interested in actually making it as a musician end up, yeah, in Chicago or wherever. There's that great anecdote in Let's Go So We Can Get Back Again, where uh, Tweedum's Jeff Tweedy and his family are back in his hometown and out at like a diner somewhere. And it just happens to be that it's the same weekend as like the 25 or 30-year reunion of his high school class. Maybe 20. And there are some of the popular kids that never moved away that were popular in his high school class, and come up to his table, and you're like, aren't you that weird guy that was in bands? And and then Tweedy's kid Spencer says, um, yeah, that's the guy, and he's won a Grammy now. So
Yeah.
what have you been doing? I always like that scene.
Well, and that was always the feel. Like, that was another thing that really locked me into Uncle Tupelo's music, was having grown up in a really small town, not a town that was close to a place like St. Louis, though, in my case. But yeah, the way that they described Belleville in their songs really did really was very relatable to me. Just like this dead, all of these stories of dead end small town life in the Uncle Tupelo songs really really hit home for me. And
Yeah, I feel that one too. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, I don't. Of the original Uncle Tupelo members, there was Jeff Tweedy, Jay Farrar, and Mike Hydorn. I think Mike Hydorn still lives in Belleville, Illinois, but Jeff lives in Chicago now, which is pretty well known. And I think Jay Farrar, he was living in New Orleans. I think he probably still lives in New Orleans. So they didn't stick around that area. One of the drummer did,
Yeah, cool.
but not Jay or Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, for me, so much of Wilco and Jeff Tweedy is just like so intertwined, like not just from um their songs, but yeah, of course that's part of it, but so intertwined with I always think of Chicago when I think about Tweedy and Wilco.
Yeah, well, I do for Wilco, but I was a fan before Wilco, And so yeah, Wilco is very much a Chicago band. Although I remember like on their first tour, like the T-shirts had the Wilco logo, and I think it was four cities because everybody at that time was still kind of in different parts of the country. Chicago was one of the cities, and I think St. Louis was one, and Ken Coomer, the drummer, one of the cities was where he's from, but I don't remember where that was. But yeah, I mean, then they just, I think, all ended up moving to Chicago. But in the early parts, because Jeff Tweedy moved to Chicago because he married why am I'm blanking on her name, but
Sue.
yeah,
Sue
Sue.
Miller. Yeah.
Sue Miller, who ran the Lounge Acts, the music club in Chicago at the time. And so that's what led him to Chicago, and eventually everybody in Wilco. And I guess the other thing I should mention here is that the original lineup for Wilco was also the last lineup for Uncle Tupelo. So when Wilco first formed, it was basically everybody who had been in Uncle Tupelo prior to that, except for Jay Farrar.
Huh.
So, which was John Stewart, Ken Coomer, Max Johnston, and I guess that's it. It seems like I'm forgetting somebody, but I think that's it. And then Jay Farrar formed Sunvolt with Mike Hydorn, who was the original drummer for Uncle Tupelo, and Dave and Jim Boquist. So that's, Sunvolt and Wilco came out of Uncle Tupelo, but when Uncle Tupelo recorded Anodyne and then toured off of Anodyne, the lineup that they did that with was what became the original lineup of Wilco.
Yeah, and I love the lineups of Wilco. I think that it's such a cool band that kind of reminds me of I know they're not your favorite band, but Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, where people will come in and be like, really involved in the collaborative process of getting the songs written or the whatever sound they're getting on an album, and then they'll be in the band for 5 or 10 years, and then someone else will kind of assume that role, and the band never stops. It's very fluid, even though a lot of the lineups are different. I think that's great. Like having Nels Klein in the band is just awesome.
Yeah, and it the lineup of Wilco over the years has kind of seemed unstable at times, but I think like the current lineup has been the same lineup for quite a while now. But not the only Jeff Tweedy and John Stewart are the only holdovers from that original lineup, and like Jay Bennett. Well, Jay Bennett wasn't on the first Wilco album, but he toured when they toured on AM. He was the guitar player. So he's not an original. He's not in the original Wilco lineup, but about as close as you can be to it. And he was a longtime member, and of course, a lot of people know that story. That that was a collaboration. That was a very strong one, but hit a snag, a big snag, and which was unfortunate because they Jeff and Jeff and Jay, like you can speak of Jeff and Jay, and you might be talking about Jay Farrar, you might be talking about Jay Bennett, but Jeff Tweedy has made some great music with a couple of dudes named Jay, and both times it was maybe a little too short-lived.
Yeah, and from playing music, playing in bands, I totally understand how those relationships can, really burn brightly for a while and then burn out, and that always seemed like what had happened, and that's too bad. And Jay Bennett, as we know, didn't last too much longer after being kicked out of Wilco. He died in 2009 after releasing a couple really understated solo records. So rest in peace. And troubled guy. And
Yeah,
yeah,
troubled guy. But yeah, I mean, from let me see here. Yeah, he did die in 2009. Um, I think that was probably like at least 7, maybe 8 years after he left Wilco, though. It wasn't like a very quickly after, but
this is true.
yeah. But yeah, I mean that was around the same time that there was a lot of changes in the lineup. Then yeah, you had Glenn Koch as the drummer and Nels Klein, the aforementioned Nels Klein. Yeah, I mean it's after that Yankee Hotel Foxtrot period that then the lineup, I think as we still know it today, became the Wilco lineup.
Yeah,
That being said, we have a lot more to talk about today than just Wilco. There's plenty of
sure. We do, but you gave some really helpful tips to our listeners about if you're new to Uncle Tupelo, where to jump in.
Mhm.
What's your advice on Wilco?
Well, I mean, I think most people, if they know Wilco at all, know Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. It's a great album. It, I would say I'm not going to argue with anybody that says that's their best. I think Summer Teeth is probably as good, if not possibly better. So those two albums I think are the strongest. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the best place to jump in. It depends on what you like because like you look at AM and that's just if you like that country sort of sound, then that's probably where you want to start. It's kind of a tough call because it's different when you've enjoyed them all chronologically and you kind of know the path that life took you down because every the order that I listened to Wilco, every Wilco album is the order that they were released. I guess you might want to go with Being There because that is like the transitional album, and to me I think transitional albums are kind of the way where you get the most fully fleshed out picture. So
Okay.
you
Yeah.
still get the country stuff and you get the experimental stuff too. So maybe Being There is the best place to start.
I'd like to invite people to not overlook their recent albums are really fun. Ode to Joy, Schmilko, and Wilco the album especially are I wouldn't say they're in heavy rotation, but definitely in heavier rotation than like Being There or AM. I think that uh I don't know. I don't want to speak for the band, but I feel like they kind of had a period where they were going to be like a really big thing, like a stadium thing, and they've come into like this really comfortable period of time where like the lineup is solid, their record label thing is solid, and they're putting out these cool little like I think Schmilko is like 33 minutes or something, and they're really charming records because it seems like there's not a lot riding on them in the best possible way. They know what they want to do, they know how to do it, and they know that their fans are going to show up and go see the shows and everything. So it seems like there's just not a lot of pressure on Wilco
Yeah,
to make crazy strides in their career, and I really like the music that comes from that.
yeah, but I would I'm not disagreeing because I think they're definitely at a point where I think they've kind of always done it on their own terms, but I think now it's just, it couldn't be more like it's almost 110%, although I hate using that, but it's almost 110% on their own terms now. But um, I just kind of think it always was, like if you look at their history, uh, doing Being There as a double album, record label is obviously going to hate it when you have a band doing their second album and they want to do a double album or double CD, as it was more. They did release it on vinyl, but it was more, how do we sell this as a double CD? So that was never a good thing with their record label, and it definitely wasn't. And then you look at Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, which I was about to say we all know the story, but I guess maybe that's the reason why some people are possibly here, is maybe they don't know the story. But Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, great album, very much beloved album, but it got them dropped from their label. So and they could have just changed that album to make it more to accommodate the label and have it released, but they didn't. They fought for the rights to release it on their own. So yeah, I mean, that's really kind of always been their ethos. But yeah, I mean, now, yeah, if ever there was any pressure on them, they didn't really respond to it. I guess they just kind of always did it on their own terms.
Yeah, I think the period when there was a lot of pressure on them was when they made the records that I really can't listen to because I don't think that they're really that good, like A Ghost Is Born and Sky Blue Sky. Um, and yeah, it was cool to, be a fan of the band when the whole Yankee Hotel Foxtrot thing was going on, and I always wanted it to be like a weirder album, Uh, when the buzz first started coming out about um, them getting dropped from their label because Yankee Hotel Foxtrot was like this really experimental, like weird record. And then I feel like this persisted even after everyone got a hold of the record, either by leak or went out and bought it. But everyone was like, "Oh, it's so weird. It's like it's not even like Wilco anymore. It's like the Flaming Lips or something." It's like it's not really that weird. I mean, there's some cool little touches to it, but songs are solid and some of them are kind of like goofy in a way, and I wanted it to be weirder, but it's still a good record.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason why, one, it is weird, but it's I think it's more of a relative thing because um I don't know, like for me, it's a progression because you look at AM, and if you listen to AM, right, and that's like your big album, and then all of a sudden, maybe the next one you're paying attention to is Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. That's going to seem really weird
Yeah,
in
there's
in
some
in
miles
relation
journey.
to
Yeah, sure.
in relation to AM. But like for me, it was just a progression because yeah, Being There starts getting experimental. Summer Teeth gets really experimental, and then Yankee Hotel Foxtrot piggybacks on that. But yeah, it just depends on your relationship with the band, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then yeah, sandwiched in there, I think between Summer Teeth and Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, you have Mermaid Avenue. I'm getting the chronology right.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, Mermaid Avenue, which is I guess more traditional sounding, but it's a collaboration with Billy Bragg, where they were given by Nora Guthrie, Woody Guthrie's daughter. They were given lyrics to non-completed Woody Guthrie songs that Wilco and Billy Bragg put music to, and absolute classic album.
Totally
So I
classic.
mean, so you might be just looking at just the Wilco proper albums and be leaving out, what is an absolute classic in the first Mermaid Avenue album.
And kind of an interesting uh, 5 degrees kind of link between Jeff Tweedy and Wilco and Bob Dylan in a way, which I always thought was pretty interesting. Where uh, Dylan writes, I believe in Chronicles, about when he first gets to New York, he finds out where Woody Guthrie is. He's in the hospital and uh, visits him and gets to be like friendly with him. I don't know if they were friends, but friendly enough that and Bob Dylan would sing him songs, bring his guitar, and Woody Guthrie says, I have this big box of lyrics I never get around to. I'm never going to get around
Yeah,
to,
yeah. Yep.
and sends him out to Mermaid Avenue, which is out in Coney Island, kind of a hike. And Dylan goes out there wearing, like a thin leather jacket and like, his like Cuban heel boots and gets, uh, walks through a field and like loses one of them in the, it's December, it's horrible, it's cold. And he gets to the house on Mermaid Avenue, knocks on the door and explains the situation. And they look around, they can't find the lyrics. And that's, then he kind of forgot about it.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, he could have gotten to him first, but then, maybe he wouldn't have ended up being Dylan if he did.
Yeah, kind of a neat little what if, kind of a neat little connector between Wilco and Dylan, who, as far as I know, haven't written a record together yet.
Yeah, well, not sure if that's on the horizon or not. So should we get into our lists? We've made playlists.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really cool to just I love hearing your background with the band, and I'm looking at your playlist, and you put together a lot of really cool things that are familiar, but maybe like live versions or what you got here. It's gold. I can tell.
Okay, so yeah, I went the B-sides and rarities route. Maybe not so many B-sides as rarities, but yeah, kind of it is. So B-sides, rarities, album tracks, that sort of thing, unreleased stuff in some cases. So my list starts with I had to include New Madrid in some form. I debated um, about having New Madrid. New Madrid was a song by Uncle Tupelo on Anodyne, and I definitely all the great songs that Jeff Tweedy has written in his life. I don't think he'll ever write one I love as much as New Madrid, because it's one of my favorite songs written by anyone ever. So
Wow, Tweetums,
yeah.
if you're listening, that your heart is melted.
So I love his body of work, but I think there's always going to be a clear cut favorite for me, and that's New Madrid. So instead of including the Uncle Tupelo Anodyne version, I decided maybe that's not deep enough, so I went for a live version from the Troubadour in 1996.
Ooh, wait a minute.
That is on the deluxe edition of Being There.
Oh wow. Okay. Oh, it's November 12, 96. Right.
Well, if you want to get real specific about it, yeah, it was November 12th. Yeah, so New Madrid. If you if you're going to dip into Uncle Tupelo with just one song or one song to get your toes wet, do it. Do listen to New Madrid. That's the song you got to listen to. And there's plenty more, but you got to start there, I would say.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
And from there, wanted to include another Uncle Tupelo song. Not that deep of a cut, I guess, but then again, this is where it gets so debatable, because maybe every Uncle Tupelo song's a deep cut. It's just hard to say. Not enough people know about Uncle Tupelo, and so
Yeah, totally. It's like the like what we were talking about a few shows ago with Modern Lovers, where Jerry Harrison and the guys that were in the band, when the band breaks up, it's like, oh well, that was what you're going to be remembered for, and now you're just going to go play in a cover band. But no, everyone goes off to be in Talking Heads and the Cars and stuff. So
right,
yeah.
yeah. So another Uncle Tupelo track on my list, from Still Feel Gone, which is another absolute classic album. Watch Me Fall. There's some other great Jeff tracks on Still Feel Gone. He did a song about D Boone, titled D Boone, D Boone from the Minutemen, and Gun, which was a single for Uncle Tupelo, and great song, one of his best songs. Then from there, Golden Smog. Golden Smog, a band I could have had a lot of tracks from. Golden Smog is a supergroup who consists. So it was a band that started with just Minneapolis musicians. Gary Loris of the Jayhawks, Mark Perlman of the Jayhawks, Chris Mars of the Replacements was the original drummer. Dan Murphy, the guitarist for Soul Asylum, and Craig Johnson from Run Westy Run. So that was the original lineup of Golden Smog. And then Jeff joined the band for their first full-length album, Down by the Old Mainstream. So it was just all these Minneapolis guys, and then Jeff Tweedy. So I mean, basically, Golden Smog was when Jeff Tweedy was in the band. Like if you had me put together my dream band of 1990s musicians, it was basically that. That was basically Golden Smog. And then later Jody Stevens of I guess I forgot Noah Levy replaced Chris Mars on drums. Then Jody Stevens was the drummer in Golden Smog for a time as well.
Wow.
Jody Stevens, a big star. So could have made a list really of Golden Smog Jeff tunes, but I just decided to single it out to one, which is I Can't Keep From Talking, from Weird Tales. Weird Tales is an album that got a lot less attention, although I think Golden Smog's another thing where maybe any Golden Smog cut is a deep cut. But I tried to go deeper and go with I Can't Keep From Talking, which is an interesting song about being a fan of a musician and I guess encountering that musician that you're a fanboy for.
Great. Yeah, I saw Golden Smog when I was a kid and really loved it. And I saw them at the Troubadour in LA, so that's why I was analyzing some dates there for a second.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Golden Smog, I saw one of the shows that I saw the Jayhawks do at First Avenue. They had a set where Golden Smog was I think one of two opening bands that night, and so I think it was just like a 6-song set. Jeff Tweedy was not in the band at the time. This was before he was, but they did New Madrid, which was amazing. So and Dan Murphy sang it. So that was pretty cool because that was already like one of my favorite songs. I mean, it was really one of my favorite songs probably as soon as I heard it. And so it was already this song that I love so much, and I was pretty excited to see Golden Smog play anything, and they played New Madrid, so it was really awesome. Okay, so after that, California Stars, I felt like is another song that, even though it's not a deep cut, it should be included on the list. So I found a lot, I have a live version that I included on my list, which is from Alpha Mike Foxtrot, which is Wilco Rarities collection. It was a box set that I think this is the same version that was on an import single, Billy Bragg and Wilco import single, which would have been when they were on Conan. So it was a live version, I believe, from a Conan taping.
Oh, I love this recording. It sounds so good.
Yeah, and the next track on my list is Jeff Tweedy solo track from the album Together at Last, where he does acoustic versions of previously released songs. So the song is Laminated Cat, which was originally released as a Lucifer song, but also recorded, I think, for Yankee Hotel Foxtrot originally, and it was called Not for the Seasons. I have the demo for that, which is actually my favorite version of that, but you cannot find it on Spotify, so I did not include that on my list. But there's a great Wilco demo of Not for the Seasons, later known as Laminated Cat, which is great.
And Together at Last is fairly recent record, but really, really charming live set. So really recommend that to anyone. So great to just have it be stripped down to just him and a guitar.
Yeah, which is I love that that him solo on an acoustic guitar is the title of the album is Together at Last. I think that's just brilliant. Because I think you can read into it, that like he had his issues with, I think, prescription drugs or opioids.
He got into the pills, but
yeah, and I think
I don't know.
I think you can read into the title too that it's kind of him, getting himself together. So Together at Last, first you're thinking, oh, who's he with? No, just himself. But yeah, it just I think that's the double entendre there, is that
it's like a quadruple entendre.
right? Yeah,
layers beyond layers. Yeah,
it's an entendre on top of an entendre on top of an entendre.
Yeah.
So
great record. So
what's that?
great record. I love your analysis of the hidden meaning in the title. Very deep. Very deep.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I love it. Okay, Lucifer. We've I kind of mentioned that because Laminated Cat was originally released as a Lucifer song. I have the Ruling Class, which was on the Lucifer album Born Again in the USA. Lucifer was a collaboration between Jeff Tweedy and Jim O'Rourke. Jim O'Rourke also is largely responsible for a lot of what is Yankee Hotel, Yankee Hotel Foxtrot being what it is partially the work of Jim O'Rourke. So
that's right.
The -5, Scott McCoy of the Young Fresh Fellows. He had a like a project called the -5, and the -5 album Down with Wilco is an album where I think it's just basically him and Wilco, the band Wilco. I don't know if there's anybody else on it, but the song that I included on that, the titles are very pretty tough to work with. But The Family Gardener, I'll just shorten the title to The Family Gardener for the song I included from the Down with Wilco album, which I'm going to maybe make a leap here, but I'm thinking the fact that there's a song called The Family Gardener, and the fact that the second Wilco album is called "Being There." I'm thinking maybe The Family Gardener is also a reference to the book Being There, or the movie, or the movie Being There.
Yeah, I could see that.
I don't know. Possibly not. Possibly that's just coincidence, but who knows? Okay, so next on my list, I don't know how many people are aware of this, but if I'm drawing your attention to this for the first time, I'm glad to be doing it. Jeff, over the past, I don't know how many years, has done a lot of work with Mavis Staples, and it's great. I really like this collaboration a ton. Two people I love, and two people that you don't necessarily think like their their past cross, and they become great collaborators. Like, this isn't a collaboration you're necessarily expecting, but it's a great one, and I'm glad it happened. Is Mavis Staples. Um, so they've done a lot of work together. Jeff has produced a lot of the most recent Mavis Staples albums and written a lot of songs for her. And it's a great collaboration, and I love it. So the song that I have here is the live version of "You're Not Alone," which was also the title of her album in 2010, the title track to her 2010 album. I went with the live version mainly because it's the one where Jeff, I would say, is the most prominent. On the studio version of it, you can't necessarily tell that he's even singing on it because there's so many other voices. But here, it's basically a live version, which is just Mavis Staples and Jeff, and that's pretty much it. And so,
Oh, cool.
So yeah, it's I think it's worth going down that road and checking out her recent solo stuff. Uh, Mavis Staples, of course, was one of the Staple singers, in case anybody's not putting two and two together there. Great collaboration. I'm going to say it again. I also just decided to throw some more Uncle Tupelo on here. So have that D Boone song from Still Feel Gone, and We've Been Had from Anodyne. It's another song about loving rock and roll, but kind of being disillusioned with your heroes. We've Been Had from Anodyne.
It sounds like a replacement title or something.
Yeah, and it's not that different from the Replacements in a lot of ways. But yeah, it's a great song and a great album. Anodyne, you got to check out Anodyne. Summer Teeth, I wanted to include an album track from that because I feel like Summer Teeth is an album that has so much good stuff that some great things can get buried in the mix there. And I don't want to say the title of the song that I have because I feel like I'm not going to say it right. So I'm just going to.
You're among friends.
I'm just going to say The Sweet. You know that Sweet that is on Summer Teeth? That's the one I included on here.
Okay. Good.
Because I'm not sure I'm going to pronounce the first part of it right, and I don't want to sound stupid. But okay, some more Rarities. Handshake Drugs, which ended up being on A Ghost Is Born later, but I think the better version was the version that was recorded during the Yankee Hotel Foxtrot sessions, but didn't get released. So I included that. Cars Can't Escape, also from the Yankee Hotel Foxtrot sessions. Another Man Done Gone from Mermaid Avenue. One by One, I almost included as well from so many
good tracks.
Yeah. So many great tracks, and I think if you know, a lot of people probably just know maybe California Stars from Mermaid Avenue, but it's just end to end great. So also worth exploring that thoroughly. Blasting Fonda, which I think would have been recorded for Being There, but ended up on the soundtrack to, I think, what's the name of that movie? It was set in Iowa City. What's the name of that? The heroin movie in Iowa City. What's that movie?
Oh, from the Dennis Johnson collection of short stories.
Yeah, what is it? What's it called? Should let's see. This
He's the
shouldn't.
son.
Yeah, Jesus' son. Yeah. So yeah, Blasting Fonda, I believe, was on the soundtrack to that.
A little bit of a detour. Did you see that film at the Bijou when it came out?
Not at the Bijou. I have seen that movie, but I didn't see it there.
Well, little side note that so Dennis Johnson, big figure at the Iowa Writers Workshop in Iowa City at the University of Iowa, where Flick and I both attended and met. And film made of his probably his most famous book at that point, a collection of short stories about people with drug problems doing weird things. Kind of a sad book. Yeah, the book takes place in Iowa City, and so seeing it at the Art House Theater, the Bijou, was really cool. But the moment that they had a street scene, everyone realized that it was shot in Madison.
Yeah.
And everyone goes, "Oh."
Yeah. I felt that too when I saw it. It was just like, yeah, you wanted to see some familiar places, but there's none of that in there if you're looking for Iowa City. I guess if you're from Madison, then maybe it's great. I don't know.
Anyway, carry on. Just thought I'd disappoint everybody. Bring back some painful memories.
Yeah, it's not that great of a movie all around, I would say.
Read the book, and I think Dennis Johnson as a writer was fantastic. Tree of Smoke, Resuscitation of a Hanged Man. His collections of poetry are really amazing. I've read, I think, everything he's written, and not a bad book in there. Really interesting stuff. And he's also dead, so everyone dies.
Everyone does die.
Yeah.
Okay. On that note, Wilco has a song called "Everybody Hides," and I was almost like, do I try to figure out how to bridge this from "Everybody Dies" to "Everybody Hides"?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I was pretty immediately like, no, don't do that. But I do mention this. I did go ahead and just give some insight into my thought process for the moment.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay, so I also included some. I'm not going to go through every single song here, but I'm going to highlight that. I also included some covers. Jeff Tweedy, I think, is always to this day, like he's just as much a music listener as he is a music maker, and his choice in covers, I think, also shows that. He covered Daniel Johnston, "True Love Will Find You in the End." And by the way, Jeff Tweedy every year does this thing at Second City. Second City has this Christmas show every year. It's a 24-hour improv marathon, improv and music, and it's for the Letters to Santa charity. And Jeff Tweedy is always like the big attraction to it every year. Like there's a lot of great musicians that are part of it every year, like the Breeders, Bill Callahan. I know I'm forgetting like some. I'm forgetting like some really big ones too, but anyway, like Fred Schneider one year did improv, which wasn't great on a comedy level, but it was interesting because it's Fred Schneider. But but anyway, Jeff Tweedy always is like the big fundraiser. One, because he brings in the biggest crowd. Like the biggest crowd of the whole thing is always for his performance, and he will go to your table and play a song for you, for a donation, and then
What?
it ends up, yeah, and then he ends up like giving away uh or auctioning off personal living room concerts. So people will donate to get a living room concert done by Jeff. And so anyway, one year somebody requested True Love Will Find You in the End, and proposed. So I got to see somebody actually propose to while Jeff was playing True Love Will Find You in the End. So
Yeah, no pressure or anything.
you're right. Yeah. She did
Quick
say
side note
yes.
to anyone, you know, thinking of doing that, uh, don't. It's just not fair, you know.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although, I it's not legally binding though either.
No, just good sound advice from a married dude. Um, yeah, you don't want to put that pressure on somebody.
But isn't that what proposals almost always aren't they always kind of put in those types of situations?
Yeah, and I think half the time, the person who's being asked feels pressured to say yes because they're in a big giant room full of people being like, "Oh, I hope they say yes," and then
Yeah.
they get to the car and whoever got proposed to is like, now that we're not in front of people, that would no. So
Yeah. I don't want to believe that that's what happened in this case, because it was a very nice moment.
no, I think they lived happily ever after. I agree with you.
Yeah, and it's always cool to see Jeff's sets at the Letters for Santa thing.
Yeah, we
Um,
have kind of a Bay Area claim to him as well. He's always a big staple of the Hardly Strictly Bluegrass Festival, which goes on for 3 days. I think it's like the second weekend in October in Golden Gate Park every year. Um, and that's what really got me into his solo albums after kind of taking a break from Wilco for a little bit, or like, kind of sort of checking out new Wilco albums as they come out. But uh, just him and a guitar playing a really charming set of his new solo stuff. This would have been, I guess, 2018 when Warm came out. Uh, yeah, I love that guy. Such a great way to see him. And yeah, if you're lucky enough to see him at Second City, what a treat.
yeah, and it was. I'm really glad I got to do that. And yeah, speaking of Spencer Tweedy, another part of that is, like his band would perform every year, and so we're going back like 15 years would be the first time I ever saw this. So I don't know how old Spencer Tweedy is now, but he was a kid. He was just a kid, and had this band, and I don't remember what they're called, but they would always play like right toward the end of the 24 hours. And it was also funny because you'd see Jeff Tweedy basically being the roadie for them,
Oh,
which
yeah.
was just charming. Um, but yeah, I mean, you would see these kids come on, and Spencer Tweedy was just drumming, and they were actually like good, and you weren't sure how good they were really going to be, but then they played, and it's like, oh wow, they're actually good. Um,
Spencer
and
Tweedy as a percussionist and drummer is really, really good and plays on Warmer, and Love is a King, the three solo records from Jeff Tweedy. And like on some level, it's just
and
kind
and
of,
the Tweedy album too,
oh
Suki,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah. And yeah, they're just like locked in and reading about their musical interaction, like they just know what's going to happen in the song and are totally locked in, which is charming to read about, but really great to listen to. Like, really unconventional, interesting drummer, and I think adds a lot of the charm to the solo records that I'm such a huge fan of.
Yeah. So yeah, just closing out what's on my list, the other covers. Who were you thinking of? Doug Somm cover that was a B-side on one of the import singles on the AM. It was the B-side to Box Full of Letters, the import single of that. 13, the Big Star cover that was on the Out of Mind, Out of Sight import single. And 100 Years From Now, which is Birds covered Graham Parsons' song on the Graham Parsons tribute album that came out late 90s, put together by Emmylou Lou Harris. Great tribute album. Yeah, and then on the aforementioned one of the solo records, Warm, I have Don't Forget, the Jeff Tweedy album, Warm. Last time I saw Jeff Tweedy live, he was touring off of Warm, and hopefully, if pandemic wise things stay okay, I'll be seeing him in a couple of weeks because Wilco will be here in Des Moines in early September.
Yeah, we have tickets to see them bought at a more optimistic time in our lives, which I think is for October. So if you're listening to this and you're not vaccinated, you're ruining everything. Go get vaccinated.
Yeah,
right now.
Stop ruining everything, please.
Stop ruining everything.
All right, and talk a bit about your list.
Yeah. Again, cool list, Sean. I love it. So these can be found on Spotify. My list is called Warmer, Warmest, LOTD Pod Tweedy. So, like I said, I think Jeff Tweedy's doing his best work right now, and I think Love Is a King, which just came out, I think last year, is this just a great record. It's not, the songs are great, the instrumentation is spare, but also like all these cool little like burbles in the back, and great drumming. And so my list is almost entirely with the exception of 2 tracks by the band Tweedy, which is Spencer Tweedy, Sammy Tweedy, and Jeff Tweedy, with I think Sue singing some backup. It's all solo stuff. So I think that we kind of covered two sides of the same coin, and including Warmer, which was kind of weird. That Warmer is a really strong record, and I'm not as familiar with it as the other two, because it was released as like a record store day
Originally,
kind of thing.
yeah, originally.
But it's so good, and I just don't understand why it's not, why I don't own a copy of it on vinyl.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, I don't like it as much as Warm, but it's not bad. And I want to say this though, because you like this, and I feel like this is a good opportunity to bridge you into some of the stuff maybe you've overlooked. Like, my impression of his solo stuff is actually that it's kind of going back to the beginning a bit, where his songwriting is just more straight ahead. It's maybe not as deep. It's just more straightforward, I guess. Not straight ahead. Straightforward is what I was looking for there. And so I don't know. To me, like, especially for Warm, it was kind of like, if there was an album in between Anodyne and AM, it could have been this album, actually, even though he's doing it late in his career rather than early in his career.
Oh, that's a really cool way to think of it. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so it might be incentive for you to go back to that period, because that's the way it reads to me. But it to me, it was kind of like the reason why he did these songs and the reason why they're not Wilco songs is because Wilco is something a bit different at this point, but it is kind of what Wilco used to be.
Huh. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, really charming records. I love that it's just him and Spencer. Um, and then I also found in doing research a soundtrack that they did called Showbiz Kids, which is credited to Jeff Tweedy, Spencer Tweedy, and Sammy Tweedy. I think only maybe one vocal track on that record, but a lot of really interesting, cool instrumentals. So definitely recommend that.
This one I hadn't even come across ever. I don't know how well, this came out what, last year?
I
Yeah,
have no
last year.
idea because I think there are a bunch of things that, like, Warmer wasn't on Spotify for a long time. Now it is. So I think there was kind of like a Tweety dump.
Yeah, I hadn't come across this. I'm not familiar with the songs here, and I'm not familiar with this documentary.
Yeah, check it out.
I will have to.
Yeah. So happy birthday, Jeff Tweedy, aka
Oh,
Tweedums.
and we should mention you also have one cover on your list too. The Rocky Erickson cover that
Yeah, neat
came out
neat
recently.
little single that I found on. I'm not even sure what I guess because there's a T-Rex tribute album, there has to be a Rocky Erickson uh, tribute album too, which is
I
only
I don't
fair.
I don't know if this is from a tribute album. I think this might just be a one-off, but this came out just a couple of weeks ago or so, or maybe up to a month ago. But it's a single. It's Jeff Tweedy doing "For You," Rocky Erickson song. Um, I think it might just be a one-off. I don't necessarily think this is a tribute album related thing.
Yeah, fun little jam. So check it out.
But if somebody wants to put out a Rocky Erickson tribute album, I say go ahead.
Yeah,
That's
I
my
mean,
stance.
yeah, I agree with that. Let's see it. That'll be a show.
There is one from the late '80s. So anybody that's listening to this well, there is one. I know there is one, and there's probably more than I even know. Um, but there's a well-known one where the pyramid meets the eye or something. I don't remember the name of it. Doug Somm was on it, and ZZ Top was on it, and I think yeah, well, REM was on it. Yeah. Um, Pretty cool.
There you go.
To sidebar onto Rocky Erickson now.
Yeah, thank you for that. So that's all I know. I think Tweedy's a really fun guy. Go see him if you can. Go see Wilco if you can. And if you haven't thought about Wilco very much since Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, like,
What are you doing?
what are you doing?
What what
Jump
are
into
you doing?
jump into Sean's playlist to get caught up in it, and jump into this playlist that I put together to get caught up on his solo stuff.
I do got to say something before we go
Yeah,
because
of course.
that made me think. So anybody that maybe was listening to Wilco but decided they weren't cool because it's dad rock or whatever anybody wanted to call it at that time. Um, Phooey on that. That's what I say to that because it, it's not dad rock.
It can be. I mean,
Well,
sometimes.
some of it might be dad rock, but they didn't just become that as a band. So if you decided they were super uncool because somebody applied the term dad rock to them, no,
If you need something like super edgy, it's not your band, but it's
sure.
a great band, you know.
If you like
Uh,
music, I think it's a great band.
yeah, and not every track is heavy metal drummer, which I think solidly in the dad rock category. Um, but I think it's okay
Well,
to be like,
I don't even think that term had come along yet at that point. I think it was more when they were doing Sky Blue Sky and that sort of stuff.
I like the uh, a lot of the bands that I like. the most are ones that don't have to be cool all the time. They can just be
Exactly.
who they are, and
Yeah.
that's Tweedums for you.
Yeah, that's the right outlook, I think, is that if you're hung up on coolness, get over it. That's
Get over it. Do your
yeah.
homework.
You're missing out on a lot of good stuff.
That's right. That's right.
Because it's not, it's not like the pitchfork band of the week or whatever.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm glad it's not. Yeah. Staying power.
All right, but yeah, happy birthday, Jeff.
Happy birthday, Tweedums.
Happy birthday, happy 54th.
Right on. Sean, it's been a pleasure talking about Wilco and Jeff Tweedy and Uncle Tupelo, Golden Smog, and everything else.
Mavis Staples.
Mavis Staples, yeah. So thanks
So
for your tips, as always, and thanks to our listeners for checking out yet another installment of Left of the Dial Pod. You can find old episodes on Spotify by searching LOTV Pod.
And you can also find our profile where we have our playlists.
Right on. Well, let's do this again next week.
We will. We shall. And we are going to.
I'll see you then.
We'll see you next week.